How may I assist?
The time by Caracris is 6 p.m. and this is CBX Business News. The business news headlines are brought to you by QMax Wealth Management, making more possible. A new direction for tourism. The ECCB holds steady and the UN pushes infrastructure partnerships. Good evening and welcome to CBX Business News for Monday, July 13, 2026. I'm Rashel Moncrieffe. Thanks for joining us. Coming up, Jamaica has launched Tourism 3.0, built around a local-first economic strategy designed to create more opportunities for Jamaican businesses. Also ahead, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank has left interest rates unchanged as policymakers navigate growing global economic uncertainty. And later, the United Nations says public-private partnerships could help mobilize billions of dollars for critical infrastructure. Stay with us as we unpack these stories and more right after the break.
Okay, I just sent the money. I'll WhatsApp you the tracking number.
Thanks, Daddy. I can't wait to buy that PS5.
Listen to me. Your birthday money is not just for spending. Remember what I told your mom? Remember to open the bank account immediately after collecting the money. Your mom has her ID, TRN, proof of address, proof of income, and your school ID.
I'm not an adult yet, so Mommy will have to open the account with me.
Yes. Anyways, I'm headed back to work, so call me later. I love you guys.
This financial literacy tip is brought to you by Bank of Jamaica, promoting financial inclusion. For more information, visit our BOJ Real Talk playlist on our YouTube channel.
The local news is brought to you by Derrimon Trading, better from the start. The Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances, tease the senses, and Pulse Investments. Welcome back to CBX Business News. We begin with new pension investment rules that could expand financing for businesses. Pension funds will soon have greater flexibility to invest in Jamaica's private sector following Senate approval of new regulations that could unlock billions of dollars for businesses and long-term economic development. The regulations increase the amount pension funds can invest in private equity from 5% to 7.5% this financial year, with the limit set to rise further to 10% by April 2027. Government Senator Cavan Gale says the phased approach is designed to diversify pension portfolios while making more long-term capital available for productive investment across the economy.
As at September 2025, Jamaica's pension industry managed approximately $847 billion in assets. Increasing this allocation to 7.5 could make more than $21 billion available to support Jamaica's businesses, infrastructure, and innovation. It is making more investment in pension.
That was Government Senator Cavan Gale. Opposition senators also welcomed the higher investment limits, even as they argued that broader pension reform remains unfinished.
Elements of the changes here will allow for greater investments potentially by pension funds in the real economy, in housing, in infrastructure, energy, productive businesses, other long-term projects. Those benefits can extend beyond just financial returns, but ultimately potentially to jobs, right, to improve services, to stronger communities, and more sustained economic growth. That's why I unreservedly support directionally where we're going with elements of these regulations. The increase in the limit in private assets from 5% to 7.5% and ultimately to 10%, therefore, is welcome.
That was Opposition Senator Ramon Small Ferguson. Moving now to a major shift in Jamaica's tourism strategy. The Ministry of Tourism has unveiled Tourism 3.0, a new phase of the country's tourism development strategy centered on a local-first policy aimed at creating more opportunities for Jamaican businesses. Speaking at the recently staged Christmas in July trade show, Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett says the initiative is designed to convert tourism demand into greater local production. Rather than treating local first as a preference for Jamaican products, Bartlett described it as an economic strategy to generate more local contracts, jobs, and wealth by strengthening the link between tourism and domestic production.
Local first is an economic strategy to convert tourism demand into tourism production. Jamaican contracts, Jamaican jobs, and Jamaican wealth. So local first is then to create the bridge that connects you with the great ideas with the market.
He says Tourism 3.0 will be built on 3 key pillars designed to help Jamaican enterprises become more competitive and better positioned to supply the industry.
Is that local first is going to be based on 3 critical pillars. 1, training, 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 human capital development, human capital development, human capital development. Building merit, building merit, building merit. The second critical element of that now is capital. So when the idea is converted into products, then the products have to be manufactured. They have to be developed. They have to be processed, packaged, and presented. And so there is need for capital in this regard. And then the third is marketing. And now the Tourist Board, we have a platform, we are now fully digitized, and we are ready to have all of you on the platform.
That was Jamaica's Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett. The Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association, JMEA, is urging corporate Jamaica to shift more of its purchasing to locally made products, arguing that doing so could strengthen domestic businesses, create jobs, and keep more money circulating in the economy. JMEA President Catherine Silvera says Jamaican companies spend hundreds of millions of dollars each year on promotional items. However, she argued that too much of that spending goes toward imported products instead of supporting local manufacturers.
Each year, corporate Jamaica spends hundreds of millions of dollars on promotional items, corporate gifts, branded apparel, awards, conference materials, Christmas gifts, and staff appreciation packages. Too much of that expenditure leaves Jamaica through imported products.
She says redirecting more corporate spending to locally made products would do far more than support manufacturers. It would strengthen the wider economy.
Imagine the impact if more of corporate Jamaica purchased items here directly. Every locally made corporate gift purchased creates demand for domestic production. It supports Jamaican jobs, It strengthens local supply chains. It encourages investment and innovation. It keeps more money circulating within the Jamaican economy. Buying Jamaican is not simply a purchasing decision, it is an economic development strategy.
That was JMEA President Catherine Silvera. In financial news, the Jamaica Stock Exchange JSE has lifted the suspension on trading in the shares of Derrimon Trading Company Limited, allowing investors to once again buy and sell the stock on the junior market. The exchange says the suspension was removed after Derrimon submitted its outstanding 2025 audited financial statements, along with its unaudited first quarter report for the period ended March 31, 2026. The documents were filed on July 10, satisfying the junior market's listing requirements and prompting the immediate resumption of trading. The JSE says its decision to lift the suspension was made in accordance with the junior market rules following the company's compliance with its reporting obligations. We move to the latest updates from the JSE equities. In Monday's trading session, the JSE market activity resulted in the trading of 118 stocks, of which 40 advanced, 58 declined, and 20 traded firm. Leading the winners are Productive Business Solution USD Ordinary Shares, Consolidated Bakeries Jamaica, Portland JSX, and Sagicor Real Estate X Fund, while leading the losers are GUS Corporation Ordinary Shares, Edufocal Limited, Knutsford Express Services, and Derrimon Trading Company. The main index declined by 1,418.11 points to close at 362,239.35 points. The junior market index declined by 26.01 points to close at 2,976.42 points. It's time for the Market Education feature, brought to you by CARICRIS, Regional Ratings, Global Standards. In today's Market Education feature, we're discussing zoning. Zoning refers to local government regulations that determine how land and property can be used within specific areas. These rules help separate different types of development, such as residential, commercial, and industrial properties. The purpose of zoning is to promote orderly development, protect communities, and ensure land is used appropriately. That was the Market Education feature, brought to you by CARICRIS, Regional Ratings, Global Standards. And that's it for the local news segment. Please stay with us. The regional news is up next. The local news is brought to you by Derrimon Trading, better from the start. The Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances, tease the senses, and Pulse Investments.
Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances Limited has been a part of Jamaica's manufacturing landscape for over 20 years. By crafting unique flavors and fragrances, we have become a part of your favorite household and food items, such as beverages, ice cream, household cleaners, and much more. Known throughout the Caribbean for the highest quality, we continue to innovate with strong leadership, a dedicated team with integrity. We go the extra mile for our customers. Create the next taste sensation. Contact us at 876-923-5111 or visit our website, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn pages.
Welcome back. And now for the regional business news. The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, ECCB, has left its monetary policy rates unchanged as policymakers move to shield the region from growing global economic uncertainty. At its 113th Monetary Council meeting on Friday, the Council took the decision to maintain the minimum savings rate at 2% while keeping the discount rate at 3% in the short term and 4.5% in the long term. Chairman of the Monetary Council and Dominica's Finance Minister Dr. Irvin McIntyre announced the decision.
Accordingly, Monetary Council agreed to maintain the minimum savings rate at 2% and maintain the discount rate at 3% in the short term and 4.5% in the long term. The Council reaffirmed its unwavering commitment preserving the fixed exchange rate, recognizing it as the cornerstone of monetary stability, investor confidence, and sustainable economic development across the currency union.
The Council says holding rates steady reflects a cautious approach as global uncertainty continues to threaten economic growth across the currency union.
The Council observed that global uncertainty continues to weigh on the economic outlook. Volatility in oil prices, trade uncertainties, and geopolitical conflicts pose significant risks to growth. Consequently, the ECCU's growth outlook is tilted towards the downside, and external conditions weaken tourism demand and slow economic growth.
That was Chairman of the ECCB Monetary Council, Dr. Irvin McIntyre. In the meantime, the ECCB says regional governments are moving to unlock $143 million Eastern Caribbean dollars in dormant bank deposits to help finance development projects across the currency union. Governor Timothy Antoine says legislation will soon be introduced to allow dormant bank deposits to help finance the bank's Big Push development agenda, while preserving depositors' right to reclaim their money at any time.
The governments will soon be taking to Parliament the amendment to the Banking Act to allow us to access for the Big Push these unclaimed deposits, as you put it. The Act refers to abandoned bank property. Most of us refer to it as dormant accounts. So there is around 143 million EC dollars, which is probably about 55 million US dollars across the currency union, that funds are at the central bank. And so legally, there is going to be an amendment to the Banking Act very soon. You would recall, of course, the Prime Minister Brown made the point last evening that with this change, depositors remain fully protected. And in fact, they are even in a better position insofar as they claim, because whereas under the current arrangement, that is only for 30 years. After 30 years, their claim is extinguished. Under the amendment, their claim is in perpetuity, means forever. So as long as they can bring the bona fide, the requisite documents, they can claim their deposits.
Antoine says the funding could support major regional priorities, including improved transportation links.
There has been a discussion about the use of those resources, and given the issue with connectivity, and given the high priority of connectivity and logistics under the Big Push, I think there is a growing consensus for us to take some initiative in respect of this area. But the details are still to be finalized, and that is all I can offer at this juncture.
That was ECCB Governor Timothy Antoine. The Caribbean Development Bank, CDB, is making it easier for businesses to compete for regional development contracts with the launch of a new digital procurement platform. The platform, called Bridge, allows consultants, contractors, and suppliers to register their qualifications and connect with procurement opportunities linked to the CDB-financed projects. It is also integrated with the bank's procurement publication registry, giving businesses greater visibility into upcoming tenders, procurement plans, and contract awards. The CDB says the initiative will modernize procurement, improve transparency, and expand opportunities for Caribbean businesses while helping speed up project delivery across its borrowing member countries. And finally, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, is urging the Dominican Republic to strengthen the transparency of its public finances, despite commending recent improvements in fiscal management. In a fiscal transparency evaluation released Thursday, the fund raised the country's fiscal reporting, budget process, and recently enacted fiscal responsibility law. However, the IMF says fiscal reports do not fully capture the activities of some public trusts, state-owned enterprises, pension liabilities, and other long-term fiscal risks. The fund recommends broader fiscal reporting, stronger disclosure of government risks, and tighter oversight of public enterprises to strengthen fiscal discipline, improve accountability, and enhance policy credibility. It also noted that the country's new fiscal responsibility law establishes a public debt target to be reached by 2035. It's now time for news from the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 19 securities, of which 6 advanced, 2 declined, and 11 traded firm. Today's winners are the West Indian Tobacco Company, JMMB Group, Unilever Caribbean, and Grace Kennedy, while leading the losers are First Citizens Group Financial Holdings and National Enterprises. Trading activity resulted in the following movements. The All TNT Index advanced by 0.42 points to close at 1,444.55. The Composite Index also advanced, but by 0.62 points to close at 999.97. The Cross-Listed Index gained 0.12 points to close at 73.36, while the SME Index remained at 79.13. And we take a short break, but please do stay with us. The international news segment is up next.
It's feeling so good right now.
Welcome back. In international news, the United Nations UN says stronger partnerships between governments, development agencies, and private investors can unlock billions of dollars for critical infrastructure projects. Speaking during the SDG Media Zone on the weekend, UN Assistant Secretary General Abdallah Al-Dadari highlighted successful financing models that use public funding to attract significantly larger private sector investment.
I'll give you 2 examples, please. In Somalia, we have a very successful experience with the Saudi Fund for Development and UNDP, where we work on solar-powered water, underground water management and pumping of water for farmers. That innovation is already attracting private attention, private sector attention, saying how can we fit into that equation? By the end of the year, 3 million Somalis will benefit from clean drinking water, because of a very small investment, if you think about it, from public money, international and national.
Al-Dadari pointed to Jordan's Aqaba Amman water project, where $600 million in green climate finance has helped mobilize approximately $6 billion in private investment.
$600 million of green finance, green climate finance funding to Jordan for the Aqaba Amman project has already attracted $6 billion of private investments into that project, which will provide 40% of Jordanians with clean drinking water. So that combination of public and private, the partnership with UN's contribution through blended finance, through de-risking, through institutional capacity building, through training, and giving trust for private investors to come into those projects is proving to be successful.
That was UN Assistant Secretary General Abdallah Al-Dadari. At the same time, the UN says another long-term challenge is reshaping economies around the world. Concerns over falling birth rates and aging populations are creating new economic challenges for governments around the world, according to the United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA. Speaking during an event marking World Population Day on Saturday, UNFPA Executive Director Diane Cater says demographic change is placing increasing pressure on labor markets, healthcare systems, public services, and national economies.
Many countries are worried about falling fertility, population aging, shrinking workforces, and pressure on care systems. These are real concerns. They matter for economies, public services, and society's future prospect. And demographic change is really about more than birth rate. It is about how society is changing as people have children later, live longer, move, migrate, and form families in different ways.
She added that expanding access to affordable housing, decent work, and essential services would help young people make informed decisions about starting families.
Everybody should be able to decide freely and responsibly whether, when, and with whom to form a family, free from coercion, discrimination, and unnecessary barriers. Of course, those shifts affect schools, hospitals, jobs, housing, care system, and public financing.
That was UNFPA Executive Director Diane Cater. Meanwhile, higher energy exports strengthened Russia's trade position. Russia's trade surplus widened to $14.2 billion in May, nearly doubling from the same month last year as higher energy exports boosted overseas earnings. Exports climbed 32.4% to $42.8 billion, marking the strongest annual increase in 4 years and the highest level recorded so far this year. The increase was driven by stronger oil and gas exports after Middle East tensions disrupted tanker traffic through the Persian Gulf, lifting global energy prices. Russian producers also benefited from eased U.S. sanctions, while imports rose 14.8% to $28.7 billion. And in Europe, Germany's current account surplus narrowed in May, reaching its lowest level in a year as wider deficits in services and secondary income offset a stable trade balance. The country's goods surplus remained broadly unchanged at 15.4 billion euros as exports and imports both posted modest gains during the month. However, the services deficit widened to 7.2 billion euros, while the secondary income deficit also increased from a year earlier. For the first 5 months of 2026, Germany's current account surplus stood at 88.7 billion euros, slightly below the 90 billion euros recorded during the same period last year. And that's it for the international segment of the newscast. The news recap is coming up on the other side of the break.
You have to be authentic with what you do. You have to be respectful of people. I bought that whilst at Jamaica National and rebranded it as J&J General Insurance Company. It was the first bank ever approved by the regulators in the UK from the Caribbean. And you have to be a genuine leader. You can't try to fluff it around and to pretend.
And now to recap our top stories. In the local news, Tourism 3.0 to focus on Jamaica's local first economic strategy. Regionally, ECCB holds interest rates steady amid global uncertainty. And internationally, UN highlights partnerships to unlock billions for infrastructure. Those were the stories making today's CBX Evening News. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Rashel Moncrieffe. Thanks for watching CBX, your region, your business, your source.